Koina Ichimatsu plays the Kokiri game and summons Kokiri-san, a fox spirit, who shows up at her window. Unfazed, the girl closes it and resumes her game, but Kokiri insists that she summoned him. Kohina tries to force him to leave, but Kokiri has already decided to haunt her. When Kokiri gets surprised that Kohina isn't frightened of him, she declares that she's a doll without a heart. Suddenly, her alarm blares, and she starts to eat ramen for dinner. Disgusted, he throws the ramen away and declares he'll cook for her. While she eats the healthy meal he made, Kohina reveals that she lives alone and doesn't feel lonely at all. The next day, Kohina summons Kokiri again, who is in the shower. Creeped out by his undressed state, she calls the police, who takes him away. When he comes back, she tells him to leave while throwing salt at him, but he begs her to let him stay. Kokiri then tells her that he used to watch her play, which makes Kohina say he's a stalker. Exasperated, Kokiri says he's her guardian. The next day, Kokiri arrives at Kohina's home and gets alarmed when he sees her face down by the entrance. Inside, while Kohina eats ramen, he discovers that it's all that she eats. Kokiri confiscates all her noodles and disposes of them, which dismays Kohina. She attacks him with a lightsaber, but Kokiri escapes. The next day, she tries to summon him, but he doesn't show up. Soon, Kohina becomes lonely and wishes to eat his cooking again. In tears, she summons Kokiri again, and suddenly he appears, much to Kohina's relief. Kokiri tells her that he's moved, as he didn't expect her to cry. He reveals to her that his plan of making her feel how important he is worked, which pisses her off. Kokiri declares that he'll rid Kohina of her delusions of being a doll, so that she'll feel human again. He encourages Kohina to practice smiling, but she's terrible at it. On her way home from school, she smiles at a mascot and ends up horrifying him. Depressed, she encounters Kokiri, who's surprised at her efforts. He tells her to stop trying so hard, but Kohina is worried that he wouldn't like her anymore. He assures her that he won't stop liking her for that. Relieved, she smiles genuinely as she asks him to pinky swear. Kokiri is struck by her smile and asks that she do it again, but her face becomes crooked. The next day, Kohina hears a dog's whimper and finds a man sitting in a box. She brings him home to a horrified Kokiri, who thinks the man is a pervert. His name is Inugami, a dog ghost who wishes to haunt Kohina. He requests that Kohina become his master, but Kokiri refuses, as he knows dog ghosts eventually consume their masters. However, Inugami lures Kohina with cup noodles, and she immediately agrees. A frustrated Kokiri points out that Inugami knows Kohina well, and the dog admits that he's Kohina's stalker. In his previous life as a puppy, he was abandoned, and it was only Kohina who showed him warmth. Since then, he's fallen in love with her. When he chases after Kohina, Kokiri knocks him out with a pan and puts him in a doghouse. Later, while Kohina pets Kokiri, a jealous Inugami shows up as a doll. He tells her he became a cute toy so that she'll love him more. Later, Inugami cutely asks Kohina to write her name on a piece of paper. Kokiri discovers that what she actually wrote her name on is a marriage registration in the spirit world. Furious, he puts Inugami in a blender, but Inugami merely transforms into a woman later. Kokiri blocks Inugami's attempts to get close to Kohina. Enraged, Inugami challenges Kokiri to a duel, while Kohina becomes distracted by a cat. She declares that she's a cat person, which dismays the two men who are both canines. Later, they drown their sorrows, and they rant to each other about cats. When it seems they're about to make up, Inugami injures him and takes Kohina, which frustrates Kokiri, who then takes her back. Inugami tries to find faults in everything that Kokiri does, which pisses the latter off. Kohina pets Kokiri, which makes the jealous Inugami attack. The fight is stopped by Kohina, who instructs Inugami to go to his doghouse, but he's being obtuse. Later, when Kokiri calls Inugami for dinner, he gets sucked into a room full of Kohina dolls and pictures, and gets scandalized when a naked Inugami appears. Later, Kohina tells Kokiri that Inugami's behavior is troubling, and she declares that she'll reform him with a dog training book. Meanwhile, Inugami hears everything, and he imagines Kohina whipping him into shape, which actually excites him. When the training starts, he's purposefully disobedient and asks to be whipped. Afterward, Kohina decides to walk Inugami, much to his delight. However, after 3 days, Kokiri ends up walking him, as she had grown tired of doing it. That night, Kohina has trouble sleeping. Inugami shows up and recommends that she not count sheep, but Inugami's. To her horror, Inugami starts to split himself up as she counts. Kokiri comes into her room to check on her, only to find that she's frozen under all the Inugamis. The next day, while Kokiri is worried about Kohina's obsession with ramen, Inugami asks him why he's so concerned about her. He recalls a memory of a crying Kohina and a promise. He tries asking her about the past, but she doesn't even remember last night's dinner. Soon, Kokiri's stomach starts to ache from the stress of dealing with Inugami, and he has to take medicine, while Kohina notices his fur is falling off due to the stress. While wondering why Kohina suddenly became nice, Kokiri spots Inugami burying something, and he discovers it's a magazine that has tips on how to become popular. The next day, Kohina asks Inugami to be nice to Kokiri, and he replies that Kohina must show him how to be kind first, recalling his sad past. Kokiri barges in and calls him out on his act while showing the magazine he dug up. The two start to fight while Kohina sees this as an opportunity to eat ramen. Later, Kohina and Inugami play the Kokiri game, but it's an unknown man that shows up. Kohina triggers her safety alarm, but the man has already decided to haunt her. Kokiri, who hears the noise, shows up and becomes horrified when she recognizes the man. Kokiri demands that the old tanuki, whose name is Shigaraki, get out of the house. When Kohina asks if he knows him, Shigaraki reveals that he and Kokiri used to be roommates and that he used to clean and cook for him. Kokiri tells her that he had no choice. Back when they were neighbors, Shigaraki would leave his place dirty for long periods, attracting bugs, and Kokiri is forced to clean his place. Shigaraki requests to let him stay until he finds the next family he can haunt. He bribes Kohina with money, which instantly makes her agree. But the next moment, the money turns into a leaf. It's been 3 days, and yet Kohina is still sulking over what Shigaraki did. He apologizes by giving her ramen, but it also turns into a leaf. Kokiri feeds her real ramen, while Kohina says she'll never forgive him. While watching Kokiri in his animal form, she thinks she might be able to forgive Shigaraki if he becomes an animal. She asks him to become one, and he turns into a tanuki, but he isn't cute at all. Later, Shigaraki asks Kokiri to lend him some money. Kokiri decides to follow him with Kohina in tow to see where Shigaraki will spend the money. The tanuki enters an orphanage where Kokiri is stunned to see that Shigaraki is well loved. An orphanage staff informs them that Shigaraki gives them monthly donations. Later, Shigaraki denies being a good man, saying those kids are all that is left at the family city haunted, shocking Kokiri and Kohina. The next day, Kokiri is worried that Kohina doesn't have any friends, and he decides to spy on her. At school, he spies on Kohina where he sees she's being ostracized by other girls. However, she isn't bothered as she chases them off. During lunch break, Kokiri shows himself to Kohina and asks her if she's interested in a boy. She answers yes, which shocks him and Inugami. She admits she finds herself watching Yamamoto, who turns out to be an alien. Kohina further reveals that Yamamoto is popular with the others as he's nice. She calls out Yamamoto and introduces him to Kokiri, and the two connect fingers. During dinner, Inugami is using his female form when suddenly Shigaraki arrives and instantly becomes enamored with the dog woman. He propositions her, but she refuses, saying she belongs to Kohina. Kokiri becomes dismayed as he thinks that the morals of his household have deteriorated. At school, there's always a new vase of flowers on Kohina's desk. The culprit observes her from outside, gleeful at how much of a bully she is, but her spirits become crushed when Kohina shows no response. A teacher shows up and asks Kohina if she's being bullied, and she replies that she's not. The culprit hears her and reveals herself, angry that Kohina is unperturbed. Kohina realizes that the girl is the one behind the flowers, and the other admits it, which gets her in trouble with the teacher. She comes back and accuses Kohina of being a tattletale, but the latter points out that the other snitched on herself on her own. Kohina nicknamed her Jamiko, which shocks the girl that Kohina doesn't remember her name. Furious, the girl threatens Kohina with more flowers, uncaring if she strains her allowance. Jamiko reveals how much effort she puts into bringing the flowers every day. Kohina asks her why she's bullying her, but she becomes shy and runs away. A year ago, Jamiko transferred to Kohina's school, but has a hard time making friends. She tried to befriend her loner seatmate, and she enacted many plans, but her efforts were in vain. Frustrated, she decided to do everything to get her attention, and consequently became a bully. The next day, there's a vase of Japanese magnolias on Kohina's desk. She tries to figure out what it means while Jamiko watches and thinks to herself that it means friendship. However, Kohina and Inugami have no idea. Later, their teacher announces they have a transfer student, and it turns out to be Kokiri, shocking Kohina. Later, Kokiri reveals that he used his tricks to get into the school. Inugami asks Kohina if he can become a student as well, and she permits him, since she knows he won't listen to her anyways. The next day, Inugami poses as the newest transfer student, and wants to be seated beside Kohina, so he threatens Yamamoto with a gun until he switches seats. Later, Kokiri reveals that he went to school to help Kohina make friends, but she tells him that she's become even more distanced from her classmates because of the two guys' presence. Kokiri and Shigaraki are worried about Kohina seeing things when actually she is seeing Ayakashis. Kokiri tells Kohina that most Ayakashis can't coexist well with humans, and she should avoid them to be safe. Later that afternoon, Kohina sees a hurt, one-eyed Ayakashi. She wants to treat it, but she remembers Kokiri's reminder, so she does it from afar. It has taken a liking to her, and when Kokiri finds out, he throws the Ayakashi away with a bat. The next day, the one-eyed Ayakashi returns. Kohina tries to hide it, but she's immediately discovered by Shigaraki, who again reminds her not to domesticate Ayakashis, as they are creatures who can't distinguish good from evil. Kohina defends the Cyclops, saying that it's smart. She tries to make it do a trick, but her hand gets bitten. Tanuki slaps the Ayakashi to the floor, seeing it lick its mouth with Kohina's blood. Later, while Kohina hides the Cyclops away from the others, Kokiri arrives and asks what she's doing. She attempts to knock him out, but she fails. She hits him more until he eventually leaves. Since then, Kohina visits the Ayakashi to play and spends some time with it while Shigaraki watches over the two. Suddenly, Kohina falls and injures her knee. The one-eyed Ayakashi helps her by licking the blood off her wound. Shigaraki gets alarmed by how intense the Ayakashi is, and he grabs Kohina's arm, insisting they should go home. He tells her to never give blood to an Ayakashi. At night, while Kohina is sleeping, the Cyclops enters her room and attempts to cut Kohina with its wings. Shigaraki appears and pierces it, but before it dies, the Ayakashi gives him a scar. Shigaraki worries that Kohina will cry when she finds out, so he removes her ability to see Ayakashis to save her from the heartbreak. The next morning, Kohina tells everyone that she can't see Ayakashis anymore. She's sad that she can't see Cyclops anymore, and Shigaraki comforts her, saying that it's for the better. Kokiri and Kohina are on their way home when they pass a woman who seems to have fallen in love with him at first sight. Since then, Kokiri notices he's being stalked until one day he finds her waiting outside their gate. He's expecting to get a confession, but it turns out she's interested in Kohina, not him. She introduces herself as Tama, the cat god, who loves dolls. Kokiri tells her that Kohina is not a doll, but a human being. However, Kohina herself claims that she's a doll. Tama tries to buy Kohina, but Kokiri refuses. During snack time, Shigaraki and Inugami don't notice that Kohina looks different, but Kokiri immediately realizes that she's been kidnapped. The three of them immediately rush out to save her. Meanwhile, Tama declares that Kohina is hers, and she bribes her with a limited edition noodles to make her stay. Outside the cafe, Kokiri and the others try to break Tama's strong barrier, but they fail. Inside, Kohina becomes a dress-up doll, and she's strictly supervised by Tama. Having grown tired of her, she traps Tama and defeats her. Kohina then exits the cafe and joins her friends. The next day, while cleaning the Ichimatsu storehouse, Kokiri finds a box with a label saying not to open it. Tempted, he opens it, and he turns into a woman. He tries to return to his male form and fails. He sees a piece of paper inside the box, but it only mocks him for opening it up. Enraged, he tears it to pieces and burns them. Kohina finds him and he explains his situation. She tells him there's a paper inside the box that would give information on how to turn back if it's held up in the light, which shocks Kokiri. Kohina suggests asking for help from the others, but Kokiri is terrified of the two people who won't hesitate to harass him. Instantly, they are found by the other two, and Shigaraki immediately asks Kokiri to marry him. Kokiri turns him down and asks if he knows a way to break the curse. He suggests kissing him to break the curse, and Kokiri hits him with a frying pan. Shigaraki tells Kokiri he's fine being a woman, and the latter gets mad. Kohina brings him a scroll that could only be opened by the person who got cursed. Kokiri quickly reads it, and he becomes depressed, as the scroll tells him to give up. After a bath, he calms down, and Kohina observes that though he's a woman now, his lifestyle hasn't changed. The next day, Shigaraki tells Kokiri that he won tickets in a hot spring and invites Kokiri to come with him. Kohina comments that he and Shigaraki are going on a date, which makes Kokiri realize his true intentions. Kokiri wants to turn him down, but he changes his mind when Shigaraki tells him that there may be a hot spring that counteracts the curse in that resort town. Later, inside their room, Kokiri asks Shigaraki if this is the inn that has the curse-removing hot spring. Shigaraki answers no, but he tells him they can go look for it after dinner. Kokiri, who's impatient, relents after hearing Kohina's stomach growl, so he realizes that it's best if they will search for it later. As they have some time before dinner, the women enjoy the hot springs. Shigaraki attempts to peep at them, but he's disappointed when he sees that they're wearing bikinis. After dinner, everyone is too full and doesn't want to move. Kokiri decides to look for it on his own, but Shigaraki follows him afterward. Shigaraki accompanies him on his search for the secret bath, and finally they find it. However, the sign in the spring says that it doesn't work on older women, which infuriates Kokiri. On their way back, Kokiri is depressed. Shigaraki offers to carry Kokiri's bags, but he reminds them to stop treating him like a woman. When he still refuses to let Shigaraki help him, the Tanuki tells him that he can do as he pleases while he carries Kokiri bridal style. He tells Kokiri that everything will be alright and that he'll help him. The two share an intimate moment where they kiss. Suddenly, Kokiri returns to his male form, and both become disgusted with each other. At a drugstore, Kokiri becomes enthusiastic when he sees his regular dye on sale. He reveals that he dyes his hair while he's an animal, and Shigaraki comments that he'll go bald if he uses dye. While Kokiri is having a bath, he combs his fingers through his hair, and he becomes shocked when some locks of his hair come off. Later, Kokiri is worried about his hair when he notices Kohina picking his fur up from the floor. Kokiri tries to search online about hair growth and hair loss prevention, but doesn't know how to use a laptop. Inugami realizes what he's doing, so Kokiri beats him up before he buries him. Later, he meets Kohina, who plucks a strand of his hair from his head as a joke, but Kokiri only becomes pissed off. At night, Kokiri, who continues to worry about his hair, can't sleep. At the drugstore, Kokiri buys many products and uses them all at the same time. Shigaraki warns him that if he uses too much tonic, he'll end up in trouble. Kokiri's fur grows wildly, turning him into a fluffy ball. When the three want to cut his fur, Kokiri is horrified, but he eventually agrees. However, they leave him with no fur, and Kokiri gets hospitalized for stress-induced gastritis. Days later, Inugami wonders why the relationship between him and Kohina isn't progressing. He becomes determined that he and Kohina will make progress before the year's end. Later, they find Inugami's note, which tells them not to look for him, even though he clearly wants them to. Kokiri spots him outside, but he just closed the door. Kohina opens the door, making Inugami hopeful that she will look for him, but she only comes back inside. He reveals that Kohina doesn't care if he's not there. Nighttime comes, and Inugami recalls his sad past. While he's crying, Kohina approaches him from behind and invites him to go home. Inugami is moved before he realizes that it is Shigaraki dressed as Kohina all along. Later, Shigaraki tells Kohina and Kokiri what he did, and that Inugami actually ended up running away. Kohina and Kokiri are out in the woods when they spot a red leaf on the ground, and Kokiri pinpoints that it comes from a beautiful tree. Suddenly, a woman appears who tells them that the tree's leaves are red all year long regardless of the season. They ask her who she is, but she merely answers that she's waiting for someone. Kokiri asks if she's been waiting alone all this time, and she answers yes. When Kohina asks her about the person she's waiting for, the woman suddenly realizes that she doesn't remember what the person looks like. After Kohina reminds Kokiri that they should get going, the woman requests that they find the person she's been waiting for, as she's unable to leave the place for certain reasons. She gives them a picture of the person, and Kokiri asks her what her name is, and she reveals that her name is Korea. Later, after they explain the situation to Shigaraki, he suggests going to Tengu, the mountain god. Afterward, they ask Tengu the whereabouts of the man in the picture. Tengu reveals that the person they're looking for and Korea had already died a long time ago. Now, Korea is just a ghost bound to a tree, waiting for a man that will never come. Later, they tell Korea what they discovered, and she's disappointed, even though she's already known the truth. Shigaraki offers to help Korea by summoning the guy's spirit, and he starts dialing and calling the underworld. However, people hang up on him as soon as they know his identity, so Kokiri does it himself by using Kohina's phone. Kokiri tells her that the spirit of his lover cannot be summoned because he has already been reincarnated as a maple tree. Korea looks at the maple tree and remembers the words of his lover. Meanwhile, Inugami is advised by Yamamoto to stop being stubborn and go home. Inugami disagrees, and he wandered aimlessly and soon realizes that having a home to return to is a wonderful thing and returns to Kohina. Inugami, who's fresh out of the bath, checks the fridge and drinks Kokiri's water of youth, which turns him into a baby. Shigaraki arrives, looking like a young boy, because he too drank Kokiri's water earlier. Kokiri explains that the water of youth is an anti-aging beauty serum that he bought expensively. Kohina asks whether there's a way to turn them back, and Kokiri replies that the water resets age, so he thinks they'll just have to raise them both until they hit their former ages. Without choice, he ends up raising them both. While he feeds Inugami with milk, Shigaraki tells him that he's going out to play. He plans to use the privilege of being a young boy to peek at ladies. Kokiri prevents him from going outside, and he makes him drink more water of youth to turn him into a baby. Kokiri cooks, feeds them, and doesn't get enough sleep. He eventually tires out, and unable to take it anymore, he drinks a lot of the youth water. The next morning, Kohina discovers that Kokiri became a young boy. Kohina enlists Tama's help, who is very enthusiastic and finds the three boys cute. Tama cooks curry for the hungry children, but it results in the three fighting to save Kohina from a monster that Tama cooked. Later, Tama says that she has to buy more ingredients. She gives Kokiri clothes that will fit him, but they turn out to be a maid cosplay. Outside, Tama, Kohina, and Kokiri are walking while the two babies are inside the baby stroller. Kokiri offers his hand to hold Kohina so she won't get separated from them. Kohina rejects him and misses the older Kokiri. He notices that she's feeling down, and he asks if she's feeling alright. Kohina replies that she's okay because dolls are unperturbed. Kokiri smiles awkwardly and starts to walk away, but Kohina grabs his sleeve and thanks to herself that Kokiri is still the same Kokiri, making Kokiri smile. Suddenly, Kokiri returns to his normal self and age, shocked to see himself wearing female clothes. Later at their house, the two also return to their normal selves, while Kokiri explains on the phone about the fake water of youth he received. On Christmas Eve, Kohina is tasked to buy food for a party by Kokiri when she becomes tempted to buy a cup of radio noodles. A suspicious man approaches her and offers to buy the noodles if she comes with him. Suddenly, Kokiri appears, kicking the man away. He reveals that he's been following Kohina. The suspicious man threatens to sue before he realizes that Kokiri is a spirit, which has him trembling in fear. When he calms down, the man reveals he's a lawyer who needs help in choosing a Christmas present for his daughter. He had neglected his daughter, so he wants to get a good present to create a good memory with her. Kokiri decides to help him, and he suggests throwing his daughter a Christmas party instead of just a gift. At the man's home, the three of them find Noelle, his daughter, seemingly drunk on non-alcoholic drinks as she rants about her parents and not caring about Christmas. With a lucky charm from Kokiri, the man becomes confident and he asks his daughter to celebrate with him. At first, Noelle seems to hate the idea, but she's actually excited as she gets everything prepared quickly for the party. After the group has a great time, Kokiri informs the man that they have to go, as the good luck charm is about to wear off. The man smiles sadly and asks to have some time with Noelle. Kokiri and Kohina wait outside, where they're joined by the man, who tells Kokiri that he's ready to cross over. He died days before and wanted to communicate with his family. He thanks Kokiri as he was able to make a good memory with Noelle. The man's body glows before his spirit dissolves in golden light. The next day, Kohina's group goes to the shrine. Kokiri watches Kohina as she prays, melancholic that humans have short lives. He thinks that it's too painful to say goodbye again, as he recalls a past reincarnation of her. He wishes the time he has now would last forever. Later, he asks the group what they prayed for and becomes frustrated by their shallow answers.